Yo guys, what is up? Today I come to you with my weekly review of Boku no Hero Academia Season 2, Episode 2. And the games have officially begun. We have started the sports festival with this episode, and I'm really hyped up for this because I really want to see how these characters do in terms of, physical combat against each other and other students. And we got some information in regards in this episode, which I never knew about. And was never told in the first season, but I'm glad the second season is here and they're able to explain a little bit in this episode. So I think many of us who do not read the manga originally thought that UA Academy was an academy that had pure hero courses, because that was what they really focus on, especially with Deku getting into the school, because that was a school that was known to produce quality heroes once they graduate. Heroes that are R-rated, S-rated, X-rated, whatever the case may be. And that was a school that anyone who has a quirk and is aiming to be a hero, that's the school, that's the academy you should go to. But in this season, they explained that in this academy, it's not just a hero course, but there are other courses as well. There is the support course, the business course, and the general business course. Now, knowing that in the hero course 1A, the class that Deku is in, they're the ones who face off against villains in last season and end up winning at the end of the day. They didn't defeat all the villains, but heroes 1, villain 0. Everyone is looking towards this class, and everyone is hoping that this class will make it to the finals. At least one of the people in the class will make it to the finals and represent that class, and they will be the ones who are victor, versus all the other classes where everybody's not really having high hopes for them. And during the sports festival, while everybody's looking towards the third years, because they're the ones who are graduating, they're the ones who have higher chances of being scouted or sponsored by pro heroes, everyone is now focusing on the first years, in particular Deku's class. So right now, by their classmates within the same year, they are being hated because they're thinking they're too arrogant, they're too full of themselves, and so they have to try their best to make them see they're not arrogant, even though we have a few arrogant characters in that class, and the fact that they are not pushovers at the same time. So we also have information about Todoroki. We've seen more of his abilities in this episode. We did see what he was capable of back in season 1, but we get more of his character in this episode, and also what he said in this episode kind of linked to what happens in the opening, and I hope we get to see it. If it's actually true, we get to see it as this arc continues on. So the sports festival happens, and the first thing that they do is obstacle running. But just before that, when they were in the waiting room, Todoroki is telling Deku, I am stronger than you. Objectively, I am stronger than you. And the fact that even though I'm stronger than you, All Might has its eyes on you, but I will beat you at the end of the day. And Deku, realizes that, and he admits that, Todoroki is stronger than him, but he's not going to let him push him over, and that he's going to win at this sports festival, and he's going to go give it his all. Now, when you get into the sports festival and they start with their first race, which is the obstacle running, where everybody has to run through this narrow cave, and whoever reaches out first practically, is in the lead. So Todoroki already demonstrates why he is strategically and objectively better than most of his classmates are, and he's already leading everyone by a landslide. But of course, his classmates and all the other students are not falling behind, and he demonstrates his powers. Especially, we get to see those fox robots that we saw back in season 1 when they were entering the heroes course, that they could not defeat because they were worth 0 points, but Deku defeated one in order to save Uraraka. He destroys and dismantles that fox robot, and I'm like, damn, Todoroki, you so badass. But also, he says something along the lines saying, I'm doing this too because my dad is here. He says something along the lines, and he said his stupid dad is there watching. Now, going back to his conversation with Deku in the waiting room, and then when you go back to the opening, My guess is that the reason why he says that is because, probably he has to live up to some expectations for his father, so he has to do exceptionally well during the sports festival, which, they only have 3 chances. So the sports festival happens once every year, so they're in school for 3 years and they only have 3 chances in order to get sponsored or scouted by pro heroes. And his dad is possibly, I'm just speculating, his dad may want that for him, and he doesn't want him to fail, and at the same time trying to get recognized by All Might. So for the fact that Deku is recognized by All Might, he wants to defeat him so All Might can look at him and take him underneath his wing or something of that sort. I could be 100% wrong, but that's the way I'm looking at it. And if you take into account what he said to Deku, and when you look back to the opening when these two are facing off, Deku using his power from his middle finger to blast Todoroki's shield of ice, it means that later in this arc, later episodes, we're going to see where there may be a one-on-one match against each other. So they're going to be one-on-ones, and those two may be pitted up against each other, and we're going to see how these two do against each other. Now, that's just my speculation. I don't know if I'm right or I'm wrong, but we'll just see as this continues on. As well as we were introduced to the newest character, this purple head guy who we did not get a name of, this very loud-mouthed guy who has like fur all over his eyes. And then we saw the same girl in the opening who looked like she's really into gadgets. And the purple head guy, he seems really shady to me. Now, I kind of noticed something when they were doing the obstacle running. He wasn't running at all. He had like possibly people from his class carrying him like he was on a throne, and he was just sitting there and just talking and something like that. And I was looking at the characters that were holding him up. And when I looked at their faces, their eyes look hollow and their eyes look white except for the black lining to, represent their pupil. And my guess is, even though we don't really know his name and he got into the school, and even though he's not in the hero course, he's, I think, in the general business, I do believe his quirk has to deal something with along the lines of hypnotism. He's able to control people. Now, like I said, I could be wrong, but just looking at those characters' faces and him just being so nonchalant and everything, and they're not exhausted or not complaining or anything, my guess is along the lines he's capable of controlling people at his own will. Now, they will have to further explain that, as well as telling his name and everything, and I want to know about those other new characters. So, this was a very interesting episode, and by the end of the episode, we're seeing where Deku's getting ready to see what he's going to do against these Fox robots, and hopefully be able to finish the finishing line towards the obstacle run for the first game, and then move on towards the second game. Of course, possibly there will be many students who are eliminated after this if they cannot make it to the finish line, and then we're going to move on to the next stage. So, if you guys saw this week's episode of Boku no Hero Academia Season 2, Episode 2, do drop a comment down below on how you felt about this week's episode. If any of the things that I just said makes any sense to you, and if you want to elaborate on it, then please do free to tell me down below. The links are in the description box as always. And I'm Kimmy-chan of Anime Legends Podcast, and I will see you guys later. Bye!